Watch the show. Oh, here we are. We are live. Welcome to wallpanels.org, a new website that we just created where you can watch Noah put up wall panels round the clock. This is going to be a live, continuous broadcast. Oh,
That's what we should rename the show to be honest with you.
I agree. That's a very good point. Oh man. I mean, we've had a busy. I mean, think about what happened between last week and this week. I could think of one big thing. Noah, do you know what it is?
Refresh my memory.
Daylight savings time. That's the only thing that happened.
That's the big one. That's definitely the big
Mhm.
one for me, at least.
Easily the big one.
Very exciting.
Maybe even I don't know. There might have been one or two other things that I can't remember. What was it? What was that other thing that happened?
It's not even worth thinking about at this point when you have daylight savings time to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say I called my mom. That happened as well. What day was that? I think that was like Monday. I'm trying to think. Did anything happen between last Monday and today? Oh, gosh, I can't remember.
I couldn't tell you.
That is weird. Welcome to EDT instead of EST, as was pointed out here in the chat. God, I hate daylight savings time. It's so stupid. It really is.
I have to say, as much as I agree with you, I love that we have an extra hour of sunlight now because I love when the days are long.
So I agree with you. Were it not for the fact that without daylight savings time, we wouldn't have had to lose that hour to begin with.
Yeah.
So therefore, it would have just already been like that.
No, I agree with you. I think it's irrelevant because as much as I love this day, I absolutely hate when it ends. I think it starts today and it ends in the fall. And I hate that day when you lose an hour and it's dark at like 5 p.m. and it's miserable. So
that's one of the most miserable experiences possible. I don't know if it's any different over on the West Coast, but like around like late November here, when we get into like the real dark ages, literally, it gets dark usually before 4 o'clock even.
Yeah,
which is criminal.
It's pretty bad. It got dark pretty early around here too.
Ugh. I do like when it's, dude. I can't so soon. So soon we were gonna get to the point where it's like 8:30 or 9 before it gets dark. I love that so much.
Yes, I love when it's light at night. It's funny, this won't be dark mode. Starting today, this won't be dark mode for me anymore because the sunset is now after 7 p.m. Pacific.
Yeah, I think that's okay. So I guess it's about the same here. I guess the time zone difference is sort of synced with sunset, so that makes sense. But
yeah,
I think I'm right in saying that we are always in dark mode where I am, because even at the height of summer, sometimes it's like when we first started last year. Remember, there was like a little bit like the sun had set, but there was that lingering daylight that was at the very beginning, and it would fade by the end.
Yeah, at the very peak of it, when the sun sets at like 8:30 ish, you can get a little bit at the end, but for the most part, not too much.
Also, we gotta shout out once again resident sugar daddy Cole Weathers for Luke's Apple Card. I wonder what could have caused. Oh, now I remember. Noah.
Yeah.
There was what was it? There was this event where there were some new products. What was it? Serta, new mattresses? No, that wasn't it.
Oh yeah, I think did Microsoft announce the new Surface Studio? Is that what it was?
Yeah, Studio, right? That's a
Yeah.
Microsoft brand that only Microsoft would use. It
Yeah.
must be that.
I think that's what it was.
Clearly no other tech company would launch a line of products with Studio affixed to it, because that, would just be confusing. So it must be Microsoft. That's what it was.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
No, I actually have not added up, mainly out of fear, how much Tuesday cost me. Because I mean, there was Tuesday, but then we also had pre-order day on Friday for the
Mhm.
iPhone SE and the iPad Air. So I got those as well.
Oh wow.
Um, yeah, I was on the fence about that, to be honest, but content is content. iPad Air with an M1 chip is interesting. The iPhone SE, I don't know. They're interesting. I didn't really want to buy them, but I'll be exploring for an angle on that. I think once we start the podcast, I should add up how much this week has cost me. Um, Purely to turn my depression into entertainment.
I think it's gonna be pretty. I won't say too much, but I know that you had an initial estimate on Twitter, I think, and I think it's higher than that.
Yeah, that was low. That was low. Also, Ian here is saying, Luke, did you not buy the green iPhone? The one that I leaked with Ian's help, of course. No, I did not. I I could just buy a can of spray paint. Okay, it's the same phone. I'm not gonna I'm not gonna spend $800 for a new color. I already have an iPhone 13. I'm using it now. Actually, the event got me to switch. Look at that. I'm on the.
Hmm.
Some say that this is pink. That's a rumor, though. It's unconfirmed. Because I
Hmm.
mean, if you came up and said, "Hey, look, I got the new Starlight iPhone 13," I'd be like, "Oh, cool."
Yeah, I can see a little bit of a pink hue, but just on the back, just barely,
Yeah,
barely.
on the sides, maybe it looks like they ran out of paint.
Yeah,
That's what it looks like.
yeah.
Oh wait,
It's
someone what? Do we have to pull this up here?
hmm.
Apparently unbox therapy. Was there shade? I'm gonna have to investigate this. We've got a couple of, well, we have 2 minutes specifically. Unbox therapy. I'm gonna have to do some. So I'm assuming this is on the podcast.
Yeah, I guess
I
probably
don't
something to do
know.
with your leaks, right?
So there's been three streams. It's on the podcast Lou later. Yeah, can you guys say um what the title of that video was? Because I think, or and even better, if someone has a timestamp. Apparently there was no shade, but Lou called me Luke Mini. That's deeply unfortunate. I feel like we should probably pull that up, because that could be pretty entertaining if we find that. Because I guess, I mean, we gotta recap the event.
Yeah.
So uh, I mean, we also got to recap the leaks. We got to talk about that, because that's what we were doing last week. That last week was a taste of the leaks, and now we've already we got a full news cycle in there of like, hey, I'm gonna leak something. A week later, was I right? So yeah, we got a full show today, Noah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's pull up our audio recording here. dude, I'm on a dual monitor setup, but certain things just decide that they need to open on the iMac instead of the monitor. Like I just clicked FaceTime on the second monitor and it moved me out of Chrome and opened it on the iMac. Like, no, thank you. It's called a new breed of Apple Macs. Oh, this is even before the event. I see. This was March 7th. Okay, I've got it up. Okay. So someone said 5:15. Oh yeah, I see it. I see it. Okay. I got it pulled up, Noah, so we can go ahead and get started here and then we'll work that in.
Sounds good.
Maybe just a little bit because I don't want to spend too much time on that. Just in case. Anyway,
Yeah.
shall we get started?
Yep, I'm ready.
Welcome to Dark Mode, the podcast that brings you sage advice from two technology experts. And that's not just what we call ourselves, it's what our moms tell people when the Apple event is studio. I'm your host, Luke Miani.
And I'm your host, Noah Rubin. On this show, we take questions from listeners, attempt to answer them to varying degrees of success, and maybe even have a laugh or two along the way.
And I think what we need to do this week, Noah, to start off with is regret that we didn't set up the soundboard yet because we're lazy, because I wanted to queue up just a quick little like round of applause sound after I think a pretty successful leak week.
I would say you're definitely deserving of an applause.
See, now this feels very self-congratulatory and I want to immediately move on. But yeah, so what exactly happened? Well, last week on the podcast I teased you guys with some leaks I was working on, and then on Monday I published it all. And I mean, I guess it's sort of up to you guys to determine, I guess, like percentage wise how close I was, but I think it was pretty solid, right? I had the shade of the new iPhone in green. Nobody else had that. And the shade the shade that Ian and I came up with was like really close. The purple was exactly spot on, but I guess that's not really impressive because we just copied that from the iPad mini, which is what Apple did. So it's kind of hard to get that one wrong. The other thing was the studio display design that we came up with was, dude, it was identical.
Yeah.
It was identical. Even down to, I said thicker bezels. That turned out to be true. We didn't have a leak on it, but I was like, there's definitely going to be a webcam in this thing. It just made sense. So I can't remember if we put that in there as like a little detail. We didn't talk about it, but we're pretty sure that was going to happen. Got the stand. Was surprised actually, by the way, that you can get a version of the Pro stand on it. That was interesting to see, but got the stand right, the dimensions, the back of it, pretty darn close, and the
Yeah.
Mac Studio very close as well. Couple of details like the vents, and the biggest one was we thought the top was polycarbonate. It ended up being essentially the same as the Mac Mini, but apart from that, everything was spot on, which was very stressful for us on Tuesday when we were covering the event.
Yeah, but it all paid off. It was very impressive.
Yeah. Oh man. And I mean, so much has happened since we were last here. I mean, we had those leak bombs, and then pretty much all of them coming true, and then didn't even care about that once we got the M1 Ultra, and we were like, holy mackerel, this thing
Yeah.
is bananas. Dude, what a time. What a time.
Yeah, that was a pretty crazy event. And it was still, because we discussed this last time, as much as rumors and leaks may spoil some of the fun. There was may or may not, depending on how you feel about it. There was a lot of
Mhm.
stuff there that we did not know about, and that was very exciting, especially the M1 Ultra.
And I have to say, I don't know, maybe it's because I'm like sort of in the industry, but for me, the leaks add like a little bit of, they add a little bit extra to it, right? Because I mean, so the thing is, the leaks never, ever, ever tell the whole story. Never. Even if you get every single detail, like the iPad Air, we knew every single feature in advance. We knew that it was going to be purple, that it was going to have an M1, that it would have center stage, that it would have 5G. Even then, you still get to enjoy Apple's presentation, and you get these like weird leaks that don't make a lot of sense because we don't have Apple's justification. So then they say it and you're like, "Oh, okay, that's what they're going for." That's the
Hmm.
thing that's so interesting, is cuz with the leaks, you get the headlines without a chance for, understanding what the justification behind it is. And so then the event still fills in that, like, why the heck is there an M1 in the iPad Air?
Yeah, that's very true because I was a little bit surprised that they put the M1 in there. Because honestly, right, the M1, the fact that they're putting the M1 in there is really marketing more than anything else, right? Because the
Mhm.
M1 is a Mac chip, and there's the A series, and they're all Apple chips, and they're all similar. And when you talk about an iPad, especially an A chip versus an M chip, how much of a difference it's going to make, right? So it's
Yeah.
really about the marketing. But then when you see the event and you see the angle that they take with the product, then it's exactly what you're saying. Then you understand why they did it, the way that they present the product.
Exactly, and we had that. I think, I mean, the green iPhone, the purple iPad, those are frankly not as interesting products. I'm gonna be having coverage of them because, I mean, iPhone SE is a very important product for Apple now, and I have a lot of thoughts on this particular update. Same with the iPad Air. Having an M1 at that price point is completely new. I mean, the Mac Mini is more expensive than that. And so you're getting an entire functioning computer with all of its input devices as well with this iPad for $100 less. Very interesting. But by far the most interesting was the Mac Studio. And that's not just cuz I'm partial to the Mac, but I mean, we had this leak where I was saying, "Okay, this is going to be the same footprint as a Mac Mini, 7.7 by 7.7, but it's 4 inches tall." Now, I was rounding very accurately, I might add, because it was like 3.79 inches tall. And the big question that we were talking about is what's in there? Because I believe, Noah, we were talking about this just last week. How if the Mac Studio had just been M1 Max, it didn't need to be so big because it just doesn't need that much cooling.
Right.
And so we I mean, we were talking about the naming of the event, Peak Performance, and we correctly said, not as a leak, but as just, common sense, something big is coming out, and then we got M1 Ultra, and I think collectively, Noah, both of our jaws sort of hit the floor with that one.
Yeah, that was, and again, it's interesting because we knew about that extra connector at the bottom of the M1 Max for a long time. And there were rumors that they were going to put two chips together. And obviously, we called it M1 Max Duo for a while. So even then, we kind of suspected it was coming. We didn't know if it was going to be at this event, but we suspected it was coming. But still, just to see them actually do it is just still really cool. It was very cool.
Yeah. And the thing that has really interested me is since the event, we have started to get leaked benchmarks because, as usual, Apple sends some stuff to reviewers. Reviewers forget that they're using a device that's connected to the internet, and stuff gets uploaded, which happens pretty frequently. Now, I want to talk about the CPU because I think this could give us a lot to be excited about. Not just in terms of like the performance of this thing, but from like like an achievement of technology perspective, because the M1 Ultra is taking two full system on a chip processors and putting them together with an interposer and a silicon bridge and saying, hey, this is one thing. And that hasn't really been done before. I mean, you could buy dual processor Mac Pros back before 2013, that update, but those were still separate, distinct processors. You could buy multiple graphics cards and SLI them together, but those were distinct graphics cards. I have a trash can Mac Pro, which has dual AMD FirePro D700 graphics. And in certain software applications, it can leverage both of those, but some can't. And so one of those graphics boards ends up just sitting there if it's not optimized. But what they've done with M1 Ultra is it's not software that's combining them. They are hardware, a single device. No one has ever done that before. And that is really, really impressive.
Yeah, that was very cool, and that was something that Apple made a big deal about in the presentation. They were talking about, they didn't just take two chips and connect them together or bridge them together somehow. They actually make them appear as a single chip, down at the hardware level, so that it appears that way to software. And they made a big deal about how that means, that programs don't have to be rewritten to take advantage of having two separate processors, because to all of the programs it looks like there's just one. And that would definitely help, obviously, with the existing software that can just take advantage of that. No extra work needed.
And one of the benefits for that, not just from writing software, but from performance, is so far indications are so far it seems like the scaling has been done quite well. And we've got someone in chat saying that CPU Monkey has Cinebench R23 numbers, and they have them at 23,566. And that is interesting because a couple of days ago, after the event, we got the first leaked Geekbench numbers at 24,000. And I actually did a little bit of napkin math, and essentially I worked out that I think Apple used Geekbench numbers as their event graphs, which is sort of laughable and really diminishes the credibility of whatever they say when they talk about Apple Silicon. So here's how I got to that conclusion. If you missed the video, basically, when you look at Apple's comparisons, they're not labeled; they're very vague. But crucially, I noticed that when they pulled up the M1 Max, they said that it was 40% faster, or they said that it was on par with a Core i5-12600K, the most popular desktop chip. That's how they phrased it. And that was very curious to me, because we know that not to be true, because we already have the M1 Max out in the wild. And unless Apple's pumping more power into it, which, spoiler alert, they're not, it's not really feasible that it would be that much faster. And so in reality, as it turns out, an M1 Max, at least in a 16-inch MacBook Pro with good thermal headroom, and by the way, an M1 Pro as well, because of course the CPU is the same, scores 40% lower in Cinebench R23 compared to a 12600K. That's background knowledge. Fast forward to like a minute later, they say, hey, guess what? Also, when we make this into an M1 Ultra, we're beating a Core i9-12900K by about 25 to 30%. And I'm thinking that's weird. That I don't know about that. Because the 12900K is a beefy boy. And You know what's curious, Noah, is when we got that leaked Geekbench score, something clicked because Apple said that the M1 Max was ever so slightly higher than a 12600K. If you go and look in Geekbench right now, you will find that the M1 Max or the M1 Pro score 12,750 or so. And the Core i5 12600K is about 12,710. Couple maybe 100 200 points lower. Very very
Hmm.
close, but lower. When you look at the leaked score that we got for the M1 Ultra, it is 33% higher than the average score for 12900K. The exact same margin that Apple had in their graphs. And so, guys, I think that they're using Geekbench, which is not the best indicator of performance in all honesty. Also, rip your wall panel.
Yeah. Um, I'll fix it in a second. But that is interesting. Definitely the numbers line up, and when Apple is as vague as they are, you can only guess. But I would say that you made a very educated guess, and it's probably the correct
Hmm.
guess. But I think it might be worthwhile because first of all, obviously benchmarks, any benchmark is not going to tell the full story. It depends
Hmm.
on what kind of work you actually do can determine different workloads have different performance, and obviously benchmarks are to some extent synthetic, and maybe not fully accurate. But why is it such an issue?
They're dropping like flies here.
Yeah, well, luckily, see, these are the two. There's two of them that I re-taped, and they haven't fallen off yet. I didn't get to the other four, but I will get to them after
Hmm.
this. But um, is Geekbench specifically a bad benchmark for overall performance, or is it more of just like not being holistic and just looking at one source? Where do you think the real problem lies there?
Um, I mean, different benchmarks are going to test different strengths and weaknesses of different processors. Apple Silicon excels in Geekbench. Um, but one really common criticism is that Geekbench isn't particularly taxing. It doesn't max out a CPU for an extended period of time, so it doesn't really test the longevity. So that's why in the Intel days, Apple had very good Geekbench scores, but then in Cinebench they'd fall apart because they couldn't maintain that performance. So Geekbench doesn't really tell you a whole lot about that. It's a quick burst, and it's good because it is widely comparable. You can test your iPhone and your super built $10,000 desktop on the same scale, which is nice. But stuff like Cinebench is better for endurance testing, and so by my calculations, what I said in the video was on average, you can knock 40% down compared to Intel if we look at the 12600K. And they basically said, okay, it's the same in Geekbench, but in Cinebench, Apple Silicon's 40% slower. So if Apple says that the M1 Ultra is 30% faster than an i9 12900K, we can assume it's about 10% slower. When I uh, made a video talking about this, I used a very high estimate for the 12900K. And when you knock 10% off of that, it was within 100 points of exactly double the M1 Max's Cinebench score. So I think that's a very credible assumption to make. Now, with this, the CPU monkey score that they just brought up of 23,600, I actually have built the system that Apple compared the M1 uh, the M1 Ultra Max Studio 2. I built it. I've got it all put together. And I get about 26,000 without any sort of overclocking or, beefy coolers, just a normal build. And I have a feeling If you take 26,555 and take 10% off of that, you get 23,899. That's almost exactly what this person just put in chat. So there you go, folks. That's some pretty credible napkin math, if you ask me.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I think it's definitely interesting because now we're at a point where we can make better estimates. Even
Hmm.
obviously, if there's leaked numbers, that's very helpful. But now we've seen M1, M1 Pro, and M1 Max, right? And we've seen them in different form factors as well. If you look at the M1, for example, we've seen it in the Mac Mini, and we've also seen it in laptops. We've seen it in a laptop with a fan and without a fan, so we have a very good idea about how that performs. And we've seen some of the other chips as well. So you can kind of make uh, some estimates, and I think that'll also make when we get into M2 and beyond eventually. I think that'll also make it a very interesting discussion. To extrapolate.
Hmm. And there's another good point here about benchmarks, accuracy, whether they should be used, real world performance. So I think benchmarks are useful. Having standardized comparisons for certain tasks is necessary for knowing how things are going to perform. But what I like to do is mix synthetic benchmarks that are broadly available and give you an idea of how things stack up, regardless of specific cases. What I'm also going to be doing in my coverage starting on Friday is running repeated real world tests. So taking a real world performance metric and making it into a comparable test. Those I think are the most valuable. Like right now, I've got this absolute crusher of a test where essentially what I'm doing is taking two 4K 60 FPS uncompressed 10-bit streams and putting them together, putting color correction on each of them and rendering them. So that's effectively 8K 60 FPS 10-bit, 30 minutes of that. That's a monster. The file itself is 50 gigabytes. And if you export that in ProRes, it's 300 gigabytes.
Oh wow.
That is a monster of a file. And I will already tell you, having tested on the M1 Max and my $10,000 iMac Pro. Actually, I'm gonna give Chat and Noah a chance to guess. I've already done the test on the M1 Pro 14-inch, the M1 Max 16-inch, and the iMac Pro. And I will now reveal to you what the export times were. So I will give you the iMac Pro, and I want you to guess the M1 Max. All right. iMac Pro took 35 minutes and 5 seconds to export this 30-minute clip, which is ProRes, 300 gigabytes, 60 FPS, 4K. How long do you think it took the M1 Max, Noah?
So it took 35 minutes.
And 5 seconds specifically.
35 minutes and 5 seconds. Well, let's see. I mean, the M1s are going to be a lot faster at exporting with those media encoders or media engines or whatever they are. Oh, geez. I don't want to overshoot, but I don't know. Maybe how about 15 minutes? Cut it in half
Okay.
about.
That is interesting because there's a lot of people that are saying, someone said 30 minutes for Max. Someone said 15, 10, 15, 16. The actual result was 5 minutes and 27 seconds.
Jeez. I was kind of expecting that it was going to be crazy, but like
Yeah,
that's crazy.
that is crazy. It's absolutely bananas. And that's just the M1 Max. I think you could probably have that again once you get to M1 Ultra. I think we're going to be talking in the 2 to 3 minute range.
Yeah. So now I'm
which is
wondering,
nuts.
was the Pro closer to 10 minutes then?
So here's the weird thing. You would think that, wouldn't you? But in reality, 5 minutes and 27 seconds was the max. The Pro, 5 minutes and 36 seconds. It was 9 seconds slower.
Hmm.
So, do we expect diminishing returns? Hopefully it's a significant difference. I mean, you're spending 2,000 more dollars. But I think what this tells us really is that a lot of the work is being done by those encoders.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it's not pushing the I mean on the iMac Pro when doing the render, which by the way the render took 34 minutes and on the M1 Max the render took 14 minutes and 50 seconds. Um in both of those cases the iMac Pro is screaming with huge fans, tons of heat. The MacBook Pro cool to the touch because it's got those
Wow.
dedicated media encoders on it. And that's another reason why real world tests are important because if you look at Cinebench R23, the M1 Max 12,370, iMac Pro 16,755. So you'd think, oh well, there you go, iMac Pro's faster, but it's not. So that's why we got to keep all of that in mind.
Yeah, and that I'm wondering, like I'm trying to think of the explanation. I'm assuming uh is it correct that the M1 Pro has 2 media encoders and the Max has 4? Is that the right numbers?
I believe that is the case, and that is why it's a little weird that they're so close. Um, in fact, in DaVinci Resolve, which I did another 30 minutes 4K 60 10-bit export, that was 7 minutes 35 on the Max, 7:43 on the Pro. So again, 8 seconds.
That's interesting. So I'm wondering because you mentioned it was 2 streams of video. I wonder if it's just putting one stream per media encoder and it's not trying to like parallelize it at all.
It's possible. I mean, with the export, theoretically, it's not exporting two separate streams. It's already rendered them into a single feed. So
True.
theoretically, I don't know. It is interesting. I noticed that in my initial test where the M1 Max wasn't returning a ton of differences, but I think that I don't necessarily think that that's going to be the same in the case of the Ultra because when you look at the M1 Pro to the M1 Max, you're talking about a difference of 16 GPU cores in terms of CPU GPU, right? The CPU is the same, GPU you have 16 extra cores. When you're talking about the M1 Ultra, doubling both of those. So double the encoders, double the neural engine, double the graphics, double the CPU. If there's not a ton of difference there, I'm going to be sorely disappointed because I spent 5 grand.
Yeah, I think at that point it would come down to like a software limitation that hopefully could be improved, but that's definitely true that you get more CPU cores going up to the ultra, and that would definitely make a big difference in a lot of tasks.
Yeah, and Ian's actually talking even here about Octane X, which is a newly released, very optimized Apple Silicon app. And this one, this is where this one uses GPU cores, right? So the encoders aren't helping out too much. We're relying on the GPU. So then 14-inch took 13 minutes and 30 seconds with the M1 Pro, the M1 Max, 7 minutes and 3 seconds. So there's where you're seeing you have twice the GPU cores, you're getting half the time.
Hmm.
So that's where we can see these differences in like what parts of the SoC are being worked here. And so I'm trying to get as much variety in what is being tested so that we can see various applications because Apple Silicon isn't the same as raw horsepower isn't the be all end all. If you're doing Final Cut Pro, then Apple Silicon is like your best dream ever because it's literally built with essentially Final Cut Pro built into it.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't get any better than that. It doesn't matter if it's like, we're talking about a CPU that in raw horsepower terms is objectively faster, but in Final Cut Pro terms is 6 times slower. My goodness.
Yeah, it's interesting stuff. And so just to, go back to the sort of beginning of the discussion about, benchmarks, are they good
Yeah.
or are they bad? A single benchmark on its own is not super useful. Obviously,
Yeah.
it's very easy to get a number for each computer and say, oh, this number is bigger, but this number is smaller, and therefore this one's better or worse. And that's, not necessarily, if you're talking about gaming or you're talking about PCs, maybe that can be helpful. But for the productivity tasks that people care about with Macs, not as helpful. But when you have a bunch of them together and you can look at all the different aspects of the chip and weigh them up with each other, then that's when it becomes useful. And that's basically
Absolutely.
what we've just said.
And I mean, you can look at that. Ian here in the chat obviously does a lot of 3D rendering, hence the leak that we just did a week ago. And in Blender, Apple Silicon sucks. Sucks. I did the Blender BMW render. All right. I did that on the M1 Max and it took 2.5 minutes. I did that on my RTX 3090, which you'd think, okay, that's faster, right? We know that an M1 Max can be sometimes equated to maybe a 3060 Ti desktop. That's what Apple compared it to. So you'd think, all right, how much faster do you think it would be? 2.5 minutes down to minute 30?
Yeah, sure.
7 seconds.
Yeah.
It took
Yeah.
7 seconds compared to 2.5 minutes. And yet, in Octane X, Ian is saying that his base model double binned M1 Pro with the 8-core CPU and the 14-core GPU has better viewport performance than an RTX 3080. Like, we live in a very weird time where it's not all about horsepower.
Yeah, that's definitely true. It's really about the software optimization. Like, it's cool, you get one of these Macs and you can run all kinds of different software. Rosetta 2 is, super awesome because it's bridging the gap while people port their software over. But even if you just, build for Apple Silicon, obviously it'll be faster than Rosetta. But if you can really take advantage of those core technologies and, get down into the metal and really optimize and parallelize and all of that stuff, then you can get some pretty crazy performance. So if you know how to use it, then it's very powerful.
And the fun part is that it costs an inordinate amount of money. And I think we've delayed it enough at this point. I got to calculate how much this week has cost because it's Noah, I'm going to need to take out a loan. Not actually, cuz that would be unwise, but I mean, I don't even know what the total damage has been. So let's just run through what I bought. So to start with, as I always do when there's a new Mac, I bought the cheapest one. I always
Mhm.
buy the cheapest one because I always maintain that the cheapest one gives you the best value. Now, obviously, in this case, right, M1 Ultra is the big headline, so I got two of those. But the cheapest one, getting an M1 Max for $2,000 almost certainly is going to be a really interesting price point. Even if the performance isn't new, definitely going to be testing that. So that was $19.99, and then of course, you know, I'm using my iMac Pro. I actually held off from the Switch to Apple Silicon purely because one, I didn't want to interrupt my workflow, and two, I don't like a docked laptop desktop thing. It didn't make sense. I needed a real powerhouse Apple Silicon desktop to replace my iMac Pro, and we got it. And I paid up for it. I paid $4,999 because I got the M1 Ultra with the 64 core GPU, which is $1,000. It's a lot of money just for
Yeah.
just the extra GPU cores. $1,000.
Oh wow.
Yeah, you don't get more RAM or CPU or I don't know. That's going to be a tough pill to swallow. But then I'm also planning on getting a third, trying to get it in store pickup with the 48 core GPU. So that's the $3,999 model. And honestly, depending on what happens, maybe I don't know, maybe I'll keep that one.
Hmm.
I hadn't really considered it. I was like, oh, I gotta keep the best. Could also save $1,000. I don't know.
That's true. Yeah, it'll depend on how they perform.
So then I also got a studio display because I had to, obviously.
Of course.
You gotta have the aesthetic, right? I can't have a Mac Studio sitting down here with some other brand display. That's ridiculous. Okay. So $15.99 for that. No stand upgrades, no coating, no what do they call it?
The nano texture?
That's the one. None of that. $15.99, which I think is too much. We can talk about that in a sec.
Yeah.
Oh god, I've looked at the number and I'm not even done yet. So then I spent what is it, $5.99 for the iPad Air,
Yeah.
and then $4.29 for the iPhone SE.
Yep.
Oh, oh no! $13,624.
Oh, jeez.
Kill me.
That is. I also just did the math for myself.
Yeah,
This was-
rub it in.
That was the amount that I spent on this Apple event.
And also Ian pointed out, now add taxes. Yeah, that's before taxes. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Yeah, so small favor to ask. Whenever you see sponsors in my upcoming videos, click the links. Engage. Please. Yeah, someone said that's what I paid for my car. You can get a very nice car for $13,000. Even now when cars are overpriced. Oh god.
Yeah, that's
And then
That's a
they
lot.
have the audacity to use an ad blocker. Oh my gosh. I can't believe that. You see, this is why I had this whole thing. Didn't we do like a whole we talked about it on the podcast, how I had like a little rant against people that use ad blockers or complain about sponsorships or whatever. Like that's proving my point. People are like, "Oh, you're making money off of us," right? And okay, cool. That's how businesses work. Yes. Congratulations on figuring out the most basic and fundamental tenet of life. But I don't know. I mean, am I just sitting back here raking it in if I'm spending $13,000 pre-tax to make content? Like, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to sound like I'm doing charity work here. Like, it's not that deep. But when people are like, "Oh, I can't be bothered to watch 30 seconds of a mesothelioma ad before watching your video," I'm sorry, but I don't have any sympathy for you at all. None. That's just my take. And if you think I'm being unreasonable, then I invite you to not watch my videos anymore, because I mean, clearly you're not giving me any money anyway, so you might as well go away. I mean I'm sorry. It's harsh but true.
That's fair. I mean, I personally have YouTube Premium because
So do I.
I like part of it is the picture in picture and locking your phone and the video still plays. And I kind of feel like that should be available to everyone. But definitely part of it is the way I see it is if you have money, if you have enough money, then your time is more valuable. And so, if I pay, what is it, like $15 a month for
Mhm.
YouTube Premium, but I watch a lot of YouTube videos, and
So
it
do I.
saves me a lot of time and a lot of annoyance because, the pre-roll ads and mid-roll ads are annoying. And so to me, it's just worth it. And I do it and I forget about it. And I know that I'm supporting whoever I'm watching, and then I'm done.
Yeah, and to be honest, folks, it's really not that big of an ask, right? Some people are like, "Oh, I don't want to pay money for YouTube Premium, and I don't want to waste my time watching ads, and I don't want to watch sponsors because they detract from the content." When in all of human history has content been this available? Never, ever. I mean, when you look at cable, you got to pay and watch ads. What the heck? That has been the status quo for 70 years. And then YouTube comes along, and it's just very hard when you're on the creation side of something to suddenly be expected to do it for free, because that just doesn't make any sense. So anyway, we don't need to get all back into that whole debate, but the point is, someone was saying like, "Oh, are you doing this for fun or are you doing this for cash?" The answer is both, right? Isn't that what most people want to do? You're not going to do what you love for free. Like, if you can make money off your hobby, isn't that a double W, a dub?
Yeah.
Because you're doing something that you enjoy doing, and what you enjoy doing supports you. That's the goal. If I what that's like it or not, money is motivation. Not a lot of people are going to be willing to spend $13,000 with no return on that. Credit where credit's due. If anyone on YouTube is, spending insane amounts of money and not making any money on their content and making great content, that's awesome, and I really respect it, but can't do that. Sorry. Anyway, oh yes, we wanted to look at that clip from Lou
Oh
later.
yeah.
This is a good time for that. So I think I've pulled up where it is. Hopefully we won't have to like skip around too much and get messy audio here, but I am curious what people say they saw. So here we have the stream. I think that's pulled up correctly. I've got closed captions on because, readability. So let's see what we got here.
This studio device that some have rumored. Mac Studio renders surface ahead of tomorrow's peak performance Apple event. Well, performance does kind of sound Mac as opposed to mobile. You know what I'm saying? Like, when you start talking about performance, M1 has been such a performance chatter. By the way, you still have desktop audio on over there. I'll never not be able to hear it. Or maybe I'm crazy.
Maybe it's Mo's mic. Is that better?
How dare you, Mo, not be at your mic today? Show Mo's camera. Where
let's
is
maybe
phone? So here's the render of from our YouTube friend Luke Miani. Actually, I don't think I've ever met him, but he's a friend of a fellow YouTuber.
Mm-hmm.
A part of the fellowship of the YouTube.
Hey, there's me.
I don't know if you knew that you were.
Really? Can I opt out?
It's true. It sounds dangerous, and it sounds like you don't know what you've signed up for.
Yeah.
Look, Noah, there we are. Drk Mode.
I don't know. I'm thinking Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Fellowship of the Ring. What does it even mean?
Oh no, this freeze frame is not flattering me.
I went too far. I went too much. Yeah,
Oh, this tea's working out for you.
a little bit. Yeah,
It makes you happy
sure. Yeah.
when skies are gray.
Well, when you start talking about Lord of the Rings, come
No,
on.
dear, how much I love you. Don't take
There's the
my
picture again.
sunshine away.
The
This guy,
worst
he
freeze
did. Look at
frame
this title.
ever.
New Mac Studio and Display Design, all caps, exclusive, first look, exclamation point, March 8th, Apple event. And I see some purple RGBs in the back.
You know what I've
Okay.
noticed here?
So
This
he's
is a nice
I gotta
setup.
No,
pause
he's
for
doing-
a second. So I mean, first of all, they like my setup. Nice, cool. It's always cool to see. I don't know. We saw our thumbnail there from Dark Mode on Lou later. I mean, how many subscribers does Unbox Therapy have? Like 15 million, something crazy like that. So
Yeah.
definitely cool to see that coverage. The thing that I noticed, I don't know how, but look down there. They've got the dislike button.
Oh yeah.
And it's showing the dislike count. What the heck? I didn't know that
must-
anyone was left.
I think there's like an extension that like crowdsources that data, so they might have that extension enabled.
Really?
Yeah.
That is very interesting. I just guess it looks very much like the native YouTube element when that was still there.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Anyway, let's see. I want to see. Someone in chat was saying that they didn't know why I was so popular. I want to hear that part.
He's doing the whole thing. He's officially a YouTuber. He's in focus. The background is not.
Another
That's
good for
YouTube-
That's key for you.
YouTube 101, man.
Yeah.
A purple light in the back. Anyway, so he teamed up with Ian. I can't read it.
Zalbo?
Oh,
Hey, they got Ian's
ZLBO.
name right.
okay,
All
cool.
right.
And they came up with these
Nice.
renders because they believe that this is going to be our first look at the new Mac Studio. This is going to obviously be a more powerful, small-ish Mac desktop computer, essentially.
Mm.
And it's a thing.
All right. Well, there we have it. So, I guess they had a power outage and then they came back to it.
Nice and portable, as you mentioned. And it also seems like it would fit into a desktop well. There was an image that he showed in his video here where he has it next to a monitor. Remember where that? Yeah, there you go. You know what I'm saying, Will? Like,
Mhm.
Looks
no
like
big
a
deal. You
familiar
get a
image,
setup
huh?
like a guy like you could have a setup
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's nice. It's very clean.
So maybe this
You can
is where
hide it
they're
under
going.
your desk as
There we go.
well.
Well, I didn't get any I didn't really experience I didn't feel like there was any shade in there. So
No, I
that's
think-
good, I guess.
I think they were pretty nice overall. But yeah, that's always cool to get a shout out like that.
Yeah, well there you go. So yeah, we got more and more people are getting my name correctly. Which is always nice because I've grown up having one of those not that complicated but easily mispronounced names. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like you'd think that it wouldn't be too hard, but like I could see why people might mess it up.
Yeah, I think the worst that I've ever had was Magnani.
Oh,
That was a fun one.
interesting.
They sort of went incorrectly from the Italian to the sort of Spanish direction.
Yeah.
Siri triggered from that for some reason.
Interesting.
Not sure why. Oh yeah, look at this, Ian. Wait, I'm behind. Unbox Therapy saw my renders. Says Ian. Yeah. I think, and also Ian, I'm pretty sure they also covered our stuff on the MacBook Pro that we did last year. Like I think someone had sent me another clip where they talked. I mean, that's why clearly Lou had remembered. You know what they called me the YouTube friend or something. And
Yeah.
they said that I was doing the setup with the camera in focus.
Yeah.
So there you have it.
I thought there was because someone called you Luke Miami. Who was that? Or is that just multiple people?
I don't remember. I know Quinn from Snazzy Labs called me Luke Meany or something like that. He texted me afterwards and he was like, I totally butchered it. And I was like, that's fine. It happens.
Yeah.
John Prosser always calls me Lucas Mianis or something. I always forget. It's an easily made fun of name. Noah, your name I feel like is fairly straightforward, right? Like, there's nothing really too crazy going on there.
Not real. The only thing is some people, when I say my last name Ruben, I always spell it because otherwise people think it's the sandwich, Reuben.
Oh, interesting. Right. Same sound, different spelling.
Yeah. So that one, people don't pronounce it wrong, but they do sometimes spell it wrong. And the other thing that happens, and I don't know if this is just me, but like multiple times where I'll tell people my like full name and then they'll call me Ruben. They'll call me by my last name. Does that ever happen to you?
More jokingly, but I think so.
But like it's
Like,
happened
not
to me more times than I can
strangers.
remember.
Are you talking about strangers?
Yeah, like people that I don't know. Like they think my first name is Ruben or something. I don't know, but it's happened a few times more than
I feel
I would
like
expect.
Ruben. Yeah, Ruben can be a first name. I think,
Yeah,
yes.
it could be, but it's not mine.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. I'll tell you what, people don't ever call me Miani, but they always say, "Oh, is that short for Lucas?" And I am here to say on the record, officially, it is not. My full legal name is Luke. It's not a nickname. So there you have
Can we
it.
get a birth certificate for that?
Yeah, you want my social security card too? Just to be like
Yeah.
extra transparent?
That would be great.
Yeah, sure. So it's going to be 69. That's my social security number. It's 69.
You got one of the early ones.
Yeah, I was actually the 69th person ever.
Wow. That's impressive.
Not a lot of people know that.
Very impressive.
Someone here, look at that. Someone knows a Ruben. Yeah, I know a Ruben too.
Yeah, that's a classic. Someone mentioned the Bible jokes like the flood. Yes, I've gotten those before.
We're
there's
both
a
rather
good one.
biblical, actually. Luke and
Yeah,
Noah.
both of them. Yeah. Yeah, I've definitely gotten that before. There was a good super chat. Someone said Luke Xiaomiani.
Oh no.
That's
yeah.
a good one.
There we go. That is a good one. I gotta hand it. I gotta hand it to him. Yeah. I mean, I can't tell you how many times people just call me Luke Miami. Like they just don't see that it's an N. Man, if Florida didn't exist, I would be much better off. Is my point. There you go.
I'm not going to say anything too controversial there for our friends in Florida, but yeah.
I will. I hope it floats off into the sea. Just kidding. It's very, very low chance of it actually floating. It seems more like a sort of overcome by the sea thing, but that's more of a global warming and less of a judgment. You've lost another wall panel, I've noticed.
This one, there we go. It didn't fall all the way down. Actually, these other two they're leaning against the light. There you go. See, they were leaning like that.
Oh,
there's the light.
Look at
So
that.
We're down to
it looks
3.
really good.
We're down to 3. These are the 2. These top 2 are the ones that I did, and they're both still up there. So I do believe that next week they will all stay up there once I get them all retaped.
I like how we were just watching Lou later, where he films from like the freaking Bat Cave, and here we are with your falling down wall panels every single gosh dang week. Have we had a single week since you've been at that setup where a wall panel hasn't fallen off?
Oh, I don't know. The first couple of weeks it's fine, and then the tape starts going. And I have to say, because people were talking about it, look at this tape. It's Gorilla Tape, right?
Yeah.
Like Gorilla Glue. It's Gorilla Tape. It's double-sided tape. It says smooth and, I know this is horribly out of focus, but it says smooth and rough surfaces at the top. This is
It
a
does say
rough
that.
surface behind me. It's like a weird popcorn kind of wall.
Popcorn wall.
I don't know how much it's popcorn, but it's a weird, maybe it's plaster or something. I don't know, but it's a rough wall. This says rough surfaces, right?
Mhm.
And I
It does say
put
that.
like a bunch. Look at how many pieces of tape I put on this thing. It's like 10.
Yeah, that's a hefty amount, and that still falls off, and you push it like into the wall.
Yes, I push all the pieces of tape into the wall, and it's so I just want to say, I'm not complaining. I'm just saying for the people, I just want everyone to know that I am making an effort to keep these panels on the wall, but they are fighting me on it.
Oh man, I think, you know what, Noah? I think we need some. I think we need some. When we do get some dark mode merch going, I think we need a wall panel. I think what we need very simply is a T-shirt with that wall panel on it. Or maybe would it be funnier if the wall panel was like crooked and falling off the bottom of the T-shirt?
If you could make that work, that'd be pretty funny. But I feel like the wall panels are. I'm just like, at first it was kind of annoying, but now I'm just going with it at this point.
I mean, at this point, I think it's sort of become endearing.
Yeah, it's part of the, you tune in, you see what we're talking about, right? And then a wall panel falls down, and you see that we're down to 3. You can place your bets. How many wall panels are going to fall down? Is this last one? There's one more that I haven't retaped. Is it going to fall down in the next 3.5 minutes? I don't think so, but maybe some people do.
The world is always going to be arrested by uncertainty as long as those wall panels are there. It's Schrodinger's wall panel. When we are not live, the wall panels are both attached and detached.
That's actually, because sometimes when I forget to take them off the wall, and I know I've said this before, but I'll be upstairs like watching TV and I'll hear a loud bang and I'll be scared for like half a second, and then I'll remember, oh, it's just a wall panel. So they are
Exactly.
if I don't hear it fall down, sometimes I don't, then it's definitely a Schrodinger's wall panel situation.
I think that this is almost sort of like I think it's sort of becoming a pseudoscience. I don't know what your wall is made of, but I think it is a chemical compound hitherto unknown by glue giant Gorilla Glue. I mean, if the largest glue and tape distributor in the world hasn't been able to crack that wall, I think we've got ourselves sort of like an alien intervention type of thing on our hands here. That's the only possible thing I could think of.
It's interesting that you say that, because it could be a strange materials sort of situation, but I'm wondering if it's more of an interstellar situation. If you remember the scene in Interstellar, I don't want to. I'm sure everyone's seen it, but you remember the scene where the books fall off the shelf, right? In Murph's room, and then at the end, it's because it's what's his name, Matthew McConaughey's character is banging on the wall and pushes the books down. I think that maybe like my future self is trying to communicate with me through these wall panels. That's what I'm thinking.
That's interesting. Someone could probably go back through and track the panels of the wall panels, like which ones fall off, and we could sort of build this narrative, and I think probably crack the case with a sort of like a Turing style computing, cracking the Enigma code to figure out what your future self is trying to warn you of. Maybe it's imparting Apple leaks unto us. That they just told us now, right in front of our very eyes, that the next Mac Pro is going to be powered by a jet engine. And we just have to have the 4D chess mindset to be able to recognize that.
That's true. I'd be curious to know, is the timing of when they fall off the wall important, right? Maybe we say something and then a wall panel falls off. Like maybe we just said something really important. I don't know.
So like if I were to say the next Mac Pro is gonna be orange. Okay, so no wall panels fell off, which means that what I said is either true or not true, because we don't know. We're going to have to go back in time to figure out if the wall panels fall to warn of a lie
Mhm.
or to confirm reality, because we don't know yet.
Exactly. We have to figure, and I think if we go back far enough, we could figure out, what's going on here.
Noah, you know what we should also go back to?
What's that?
We should go back to the time when we weren't streaming live for the podcast.
Oh yeah, I remember that. That was a good time.
Yeah. And I think honestly we should go back to the future, which is us not being live anymore. I've been your host, Luke Miani.
And I've been your host, Noah Rubin. Have a great night.
That was clean.